What is up? Welcome into your daily Buckeye Blitz for a Wednesday, December 14th, 2022. I'm your host, Joe from the Buckeye Cast. Oh boy, today's issue is a big one. This might go a little long. That's what she said. We're going to talk NIL. I'm worn out about it, but this is more of an education. I'm trying to get information out there to help Buckeye fans realize what the issues are, what they can and can't do, what a collective is, because a collective is just a random word that just came into our lexicon like a couple months ago. So we're going to talk NIL as far as like rules, and some schools are not operating by any rules. So I know that we can't like paint all the SEC with a broad brush, but it's easy to look down south at them with a side eye. So, and Miami too, for that matter. Anyway, let's get into it. Please stick with the show. If you just want to know how to give to the Ohio State collectives, I have links in the description for this show. Whether you're listening to it on podcast or video, whatever, I have links to all three of the Ohio State collectives that Ohio State has approved and are working with. So, and that's according to Gene Smith, the AD. So, let's get into it. Again, check out the links if you want to know how to give. Check out the links in the show descriptions. Here we go. Buckle up. I'll try to not make this too boring. Okay, NIL rules. Number one, you got to know this. It cannot be used as a recruiting inducement, but at the same time, collectives, which are, we'll get into the definition of a collective. Collectives can talk to recruits and their families during the recruiting process. So it can't be used by the school as an inducement, but the collective, which is not represented by the school, but is endorsed by the school, kind of. There's an open relationship between the collectives and the schools now. That's a new NCAA guideline that just got updated. So you got to know the difference, though. The schools cannot use NIL deals as an inducement for recruits, but the collectives can tell the recruits and their families, this is like a price range, a base salary, whatever you want to call it, and that's on them. So the school's not involved in that aspect of any deals I'm pretty sure. Well, the big problem. Oh, fuck. Let's back up. So there's 50 different state laws right now. Every state has its own NIL law, and none of them are identical. So that is the first big challenge. So we're about 16 months into the new NIL world, and the NCAA, you got to just stick to their guidelines. You got to do it right. That's why when you hear somebody like Brian Schottenstein talk about the foundation for Ohio State, he's doing it the right way, and same as all three of the collectives that work with Ohio State. So they're doing it the right way. They got to follow whatever guidelines are there. Okay, they can't this isn't the Wild West. Ohio State's never going to operate like that. And a collective that operates like that is not going to be in business with Ohio State as a school. So, all right. So you do have to stay within some guidelines. There's very little right now from the NCAA. The different state laws have an effect as well. So you got to keep all this in mind. And like I said, it's different in every freaking state. But the NCAA rules are kind of overlapping everything. All right. Back in, what was it? I forget. April. Yeah. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey and Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkov went to Washington, D.C. They talked to Congress. They're asking and begging and pleading with legislators to enact some kind of blanket NIL law because the NCAA is so useless. So Until that happens, we have to live with the guidelines in every different state and with the little NCAA rules that they put into place. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about players and their deals. So a player can sign a deal directly with any business, any company, doesn't matter. You could be Bryce Young signing a deal with Dr. Pepper, CJ Stroud signing a deal with BMW or a car company, a car dealer in Columbus, doesn't matter. This is where they need to, for their own protection, the players need to have an agent or a lawyer so that somebody can read through these contracts that you're signing. At least in Ohio, you have to provide some kind of, some kind of service with these deals. You can't just collect a check for doing nothing. All right. So that's the state law. At least from what I understand. If you guys have questions, hit me up in the chat or in the comments. Find me on Twitter, email me, joe@thebuckeyecast.com, and I will get answers to your questions. Okay. I probably should have laid that out early. So anyways, players can sign a deal. It doesn't have to be involved with a collective whatsoever. So say I own, I don't know, a paint store in Upper Arlington, and we all know there's no paint stores in Upper Arlington. It's a joke. Anyways, I can make a deal with, I don't know, Devin Brown, the third string quarterback. I will pay him to take a photo and we're going to put it on a billboard. Okay. And we want him to tweet out on his social media this photo, of him with our sign in front of our building or whatever, endorsing our paint store. Okay. He can do that. He does not have to go through a collective. The collective is there for, but again, I want to go back and say that player, Devin Brown, should have an agent or lawyer if he's signing anything to protect him with that business. Okay. And it spells out what is expected of that player. So, but a collective is where fans and boosters, anybody in the world, can give money to a big bucket. That's a fund. And that bucket, the owners of that bucket, is the collective. Okay. And they create relationships with student athletes. I know, I hate that term too. Football players that allow them to endorse or advertise with a local company or whatever. So the collective is brokering the deal. They're setting up the deal because they have the money from the fan base and they want to pay, again, let's say Devin Brown, let's pay him $1,000 and he's going to go out and represent this company and we're going to help broker the deal. Again, I would, if I'm a player, I would have an agent or a lawyer look over everything. Okay. It's worth it. It might cost you 5% or whatever, but it's freaking worth it, right? In the long run, because something is going to be expected of you. Now we know we've heard many rumors about teams in the SEC, schools in the SEC that are just handing out free bags of cash. And that might be the case. All right. But every state law is different. So you got to understand that, in Miami, maybe they can just sign checks to whoever. So you got to remember that in Ohio, from what I understand, and many other states, a service has to be provided in order to get paid. Okay. So anyways, let's continue on with collectives. There are some, not all, okay, most are tax exempt. They're not for profit. They're filing for a 501c3, okay, under the IRS. So that allows boosters and us, the fans, to give a donation and then write it off of our taxes. So we get a deduction. Okay. That's the point of the collectives being a charity. It makes it a win-win. You give money, you get a tax break. So that's the attraction there. So, but not all. You've got to keep that in mind. Some are for profit. Okay. And those are the ones that are probably the most organized as far as infrastructure. They got a team, they got a CEO. If you listen to our Sunday night YouTube live, we talked about this. Like Florida has a CEO, and a staff of full-time employees, because this is a for-profit entity, for-profit business that is a collective, collecting money and then paying out, to the players and setting up deals. So right now there's well over 120 collectives. That's the number I found most recently across the country, and 92% of the Power 5 schools have a collective, at least one. Like I said, they're organized and designed to be charitable organizations, but not all are. And they, let me give you some examples. You probably heard of these. If you haven't, then listen. So University of Texas started a nonprofit charity called Horns for Hearts, or Horns with Hearts. I don't know. It sounds weird. Horns and hearts don't really go together. Anyway, they guaranteed money of $50,000 to each offensive lineman on the team. Starters, non-starters, bench, whatever. So this is funded by a collective, the Clark Field Collective. They've already collected over $10 million from boosters to support all of their NIL athletes. Okay. Tennessee, the governor there signed an amendment to the state's NIL law, removing any barriers for coaches or universities about attending NIL events or any issues with universities helping fundraise for collectives. So that's legal in Tennessee. Again, state laws different everywhere. So Alabama also just repealed their NIL law, allowing universities to work directly with NIL collectives. Other states like Florida, Kentucky, and Virginia are down that same road. They're trying to amend or repeal their collective and university interaction kind of laws. Okay. So a school like Ohio State now can, in Ohio at least, they can endorse these three collectives, and Gene Smith can say, he tweeted out that announcement last week. Here are the three collectives. Please give to them and help our student athletes, is basically what it said. Okay. So one thing I will mention about these charities, the ones that are set up as a 501c3, they have to release tax statements. Okay. And according to Brian Schottenstein in his interview last week, he said that will come after tax season. So I would imagine spring, April, we will get some kind of idea, some transparency, because I think that's a lot of the issue with us fans. There's no transparency. Like, how much have you collected? Who's it gone to? So we will get some clarity as far as how much they have collected after tax season. So keep an eye out for that. I know I will, and I'll keep you up to date. One question about some of the schools in the South and Miami and everything is, what happens if the IRS decides to audit their charitable status? Would they survive that? I don't know. I'm kind of doubting it. Anyways, so we talked about the collective being just a large bucket of money, and then the owner of the bucket, like Brian Schottenstein, he sets up the deals, and it's a way for the fan base to decide to back the players directly and not just give to the university. Now, we know that a lot of old boosters are not a big fan of NIL and the transfer portal, and all of this is hitting at once, and that's not great. But a lot of old time boosters like to have their name on a building, or they like to give to the entire athletic department and not just to these collectives, or not just making a deal with a player when the kid could leave in 6 months. I understand their point of view. Not saying it's right or wrong, just saying I understand an older booster that has typically just scratched a check to the university, made out to Ohio State University, win $10 million. Thank you. And so they're not I understand the apprehension, and there, who knows what's coming down the road, but it's something like collective bargaining is definitely on the table in the next 5 years. So we'll see. Okay. I will say the collectives are positive in that not only do they support the players, but it's a way for us fans to be involved. I feel they throw events. I have a feeling the events are going to ramp up as the money ramps up. So, and as they get staffs and infrastructure to build up these collectives and make them more like a charity or a business. So I think the positives outweigh the negatives in that I feel I can give money and it's going directly to the players. I'm not just scratching a check to the athletic department, and it might be buying, volleyballs or something, you don't know. So that this way it's more direct to the players, in a collective. So quickly, I want to finish up. NCAA, like I mentioned earlier, they said schools can now work with an NIL service provider to administer a marketplace. So basically a collective. They cannot, however, engage in negotiations on behalf of the collective or the student athlete. Okay. School personnel, including coaches, can assist in collecting, in fundraising for these collectives through appearances or by autographs or whatever, but they cannot donate cash directly to the collectives. So you got to keep that in mind. That's a key. Everybody's saying, why doesn't Gene Smith just give money to the collectives? No, he can't. He can't. Brian Day can't. Nobody can that works for the university. At least from this, it says school personnel. This is from the NCAA's website. It says school personnel, including coaches, can assist in collective, but they cannot donate cash directly to those collectives. Also, school staff members also cannot be employed or have an ownership stake in a collective. Okay, so hands off by any school staff members. Schools can request donors provide funds to collectives. So ask for donations to the collective. And that's what Gene did last week with his announcement. And they do not have to be those, they do not have to request that those funds be directed to a specific sport or athlete. So the schools can say, please give to our collectives, but you don't have to, they cannot say, give it to CJ Stroud, because it goes to the collective. Okay. And then the collective strikes the deals. All right. So hope you enjoyed that. I know I feel like I need to take a shower. This is the world we live in. I haven't been showering more though, so that's good. Anyways, don't forget, subscribe, like everything. And the links to these 3 collectives for Ohio State are in the show description. So check them out. The foundation just started a recurring payments. So consider that if you only want to give $5 or $10 a month. I would recommend that. So the O Foundation, I will say, seems to be just basketball focused. So if you like basketball and you want to give directly to the team, that's what I would go with, the O Foundation. So anyways, appreciate you guys. Thank you as always. And if you have questions, again, hit me up. You can email me, joe@thebuckeyecast.com. Ask questions on YouTube in the comments for the videos, or find me on Twitter. All right. Talk to you later. Go Bucks. That was too much talking. God.